Welcome to Executives at the Edge, the podcast from Amplify. Each episode features insights from the top network, cloud, and technology executives, giving you key takeaways to help you grow your revenue and bring solutions to market faster. I'm your host, Pascal Menezes. Join me as we explore thought-provoking perspectives from the leaders and changemakers propelling the AI-powered digital economy forward. I am super excited to have Hugo Vliegen. He's the VP of Product Management for SD-WAN and SASE at Cisco. And today's episode is going to be really fascinating. We're going to talk a lot about AI. Is the internet good enough for AI? What's really going on with enterprises and how they have to secure themselves from AI and AI itself, and how cybersecurity and SD-WAN and all the networks have to converge, and opportunities for providers to really get on this AI era. So with that, Hugo, welcome to Executives at the Edge. And for our listeners, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and really what you're doing at Cisco?
Excellent. Okay, Pascal, I'm really great being here. Yeah, I've been associated with Cisco for a long time, right? So I was counting it 20 years, give or take. This is the second time that I'm Cisco. I've been for a long time being involved in networking and security, right, from the early beginnings and up till today. And so I remember the days before SD-WAN, during SD-WAN, and now with a lot of security integration. I've as well worked a lot with the service providers across the globe, right, because a lot of the networks delivered to enterprise customers or other smaller business customers, a lot of them is transacted via the service provider. So I've spent a lot of time across the globe to work with a lot of the telcos and service providers across the globe in order to create managed services around the WAN, and now with around the secure WAN and SASE, etc. And yeah, as you said, I'm responsible in Cisco for product management for SD-WAN and SASE. And so as part of that, I run the SD-WAN portfolio in Cisco. And that is any flavor of SD-WAN, whether it's Catalyst SD-WAN or Meraki SD-WAN, but as well the convergence with security is super important these days. So I'm spending a lot of time how to infuse networking into the network stack, especially the SD-WAN stacks, and really delivering that convergence and easy experience for all these different market segments, which we are addressing.
Hugo, so what is going on with AI? AI has gone really crazy. Everybody's talking about it. So what are the enterprises doing with AI, and what do they expect their networks to do today?
Yeah, so the days are very early, right? So over the last 3 years, companies have been busy to build the AI factory. And now AI is coming to where people work, right? And so what we are seeing in Cisco is that the adoption of AI is really increasing rapidly in those workplaces. So for example, I saw information this morning that between October and March, AI usage has been grown by 160% in workplaces and branches across the network. So that's one element. The other data, what I saw is that 25% of the clients on the network are using some level of AI and Gen AI, right? So the adoption is happening. And of course, it's early days. Everybody is experimenting. But we are seeing already a few things like that AI is multimodal, right? Which means that it's text, it's video, it is other control traffic between the as a result of these AI apps or agents. And for example, we have a customer who is using robots in warehouses, and they're completely AI controlled. So there's a lot of video, far more bandwidth on that network, as well as they are dealing with the chattiness of AI. And so they are putting controls in place in order to make sure that the latency on that network for these various applications is less than 250 milliseconds. So what's happening? It's early. It's a wild west, I would say. But people are experimenting. And it's changing the requirements for the network. One other example, if you have, for example, software development as an example where people are coding, then you're dealing with the fact that software engineer is working with an AI-driven coding system, editing system, and there's far more back and forth traffic between that developer and that that AI data center and with the network in between. So even there, you see that latency is becoming very important. There's a lot of context window, those being uploaded continuously to the AI infrastructure in order to help that person with coding. So the network is, or the requirements on the network are fundamentally changing as a result of AI adoption. And of course, there is the security concerns, right? So there's a huge concern in terms of should I allow these applications on the network? Is there a risk of being compromised? So all of these things are coming in if you talk about changing the how AI is changing the requirements for the WAN, for the network.
So is the internet going to be good enough for AI, or do we see a whole new built AI infrastructure? The internet's been since the 80s. I remember doing that in the late 80s. Cisco first came out. And, the internet just grew from a very old paradigm, and everybody layered on top of it all these kind of applications. But now AI is very radical. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the days of good enough connectivity, good enough internet, I think that those days are completely changing again. I think AI is going to provide a huge opportunity to provide high performance networks. And I'm not saying that all traffic needs to have that high performance network, right? So we should have differentiated services where we, depending on the nature of that application, we use more a broadband or more a standard internet without high levels SLAs in terms of the latency. But I think there's a huge opportunity to basically guarantee latency SLAs, far higher performance, because the nature of AI is very bursty. I think the what I earlier said, latency is going to be back, right? So if you have a developer or a robot who's dealing with a very not a very latency controlled network, then the performance and the productivity is going to dwindle, right? Systems won't work. The other thing is that it's the bandwidth needs are going up dramatically because of the use of AI. So yes, I think the requirements changing. There's a need for differentiated services, and then there is, of course, the whole sovereignty aspect. There is, data ownership. I meet with customers who are asking questions about, do you provide me with tools to ensure that traffic stays in a certain geography, right? So you can call it geo-routing, but that's another dimension to this whole area where AI or sovereignty in combination with AI is going to ask for new ways in order to control where the traffic goes from that point of view. So I think people starts looking for, as a result of AI, sovereignty, all these kind of things, for models where they can have a better experience on the network.
And does that include, Cisco has a huge portfolio inside the enterprises, in the campuses, buildings, so on, with LAN switches, Wi-Fi. Will that also have to evolve than currently where we see best effort Wi-Fi too?
No, it definitely, absolutely, it will evolve, and it starts already with observability, right? So you want to have an automated system where you really can understand and observe the quality of all these connections and interactions on an app level basis, on the user level, right? And you want to have the automated controls in place in order to, if there are issues, that there will be automatically troubleshooted, and there are measurements being presented, right? Either they are corrected measures implemented by a user being in the loop, or that these corrective measurements are, basically highly automated and implemented automatically.
So what do you think about, in Amplify, we have a lot of service providers as members, and, the role of service providers in the past has always been about connectivity. What do you think is their opportunity ahead in AI?
So the opportunity is, I think the opportunity is totally massive, right? So, and I think service providers have been already working on reinventing themselves in this new world. But I think AI is an opportunity that instead of selling transport to selling assured experiences. Right? I think that's a huge important one. If you can come back, that service provider can say, well, depending on the applications, I provide different SLAs and I can actually really provide controls around it, right? So going back to AI, you have a service level where you can guarantee latency, where you guarantee the path, you can guarantee performance, so that you have in an agentic world that these applications work very well. That is one huge opportunity. The other huge opportunity as a result of this is that network and security are really coming together. I think all the silos are being broken down so very quickly, and the reason is that if you think about trust, right? So zero trust principles. If we apply them to users, we have applied them to things, we apply them to apps, but now they are applied to agents. And so all of that, in order to establish that zero trust level, you need a interaction between networking and security. Bolted on security on the network is not going to work, because then you have to redirect, you have to hairpin, in order to reach and in order to inspect whether that traffic is compromised, right? You have to redirect it to some other process, whether it is an SSE, a security services edge, or another process in order to inspect that stream. No, all of that needs to be embedded in the network. It needs to be very distributed. So what I'm saying, there's another opportunity for the service providers who are traditionally very strong in networking and connectivity, in order to build the security controls embedded and enforcement points embedded in the network. And the real interesting thing is that we thought, if you go back 10 years ago, it's a cloud-first world, right? We went from everything on-prem to everything cloud. I think we are in a world where the world is hybrid. Things can live on-prem, things can live in the cloud, and depending on the use case and the deployment scenarios and the outcomes you're driving, that functionality could be enabled from the cloud, or it can enable from on-prem. So if you think about security, you have cloud security, you have on-prem security. And I think service providers have a huge opportunity to embed, for example, the security stack on the WAN router, right? Or the SD-WAN router, and deliver those services embedded in that stack. The same in Cisco. All these Cisco's as well reinventing themselves, where security functionality is being deeply embedded into the network. I think that whole trend is coming to service providers, and we already have several of the service providers which are already going down that track. They are embedding security stack on the routers, as an example, in conjunction with security living in the cloud, and then based on centralized policies, intent-based policies, and an identity-based policy that doesn't matter whether it's executed on-prem or whether executed in the cloud, is part of one centralized system. And just to touch on zero trust and identity, right? So if you look at AI as an example, as a result of AI, we will see an explosion of the number of applications on the network, agents, because people are experimenting, and people have easier tools to come up with new ideas, new applications, because AI will help them actually to develop all these different applications. And these agents will communicate, they chain with each other, and they communicate with each other. So as a result, there is the zero trust, as in understanding the identity of a user or a thing or an app, will come to the agents. So you will see that over time, that if you define policies, that those policies are associated with an identity. And obviously, a lot of security policies today already associated with an identity, that will come to networking. And so if you talk about the opportunity for the service providers, I think service providers will really take their networking strengths and take that opportunity to address the need of customers to really insert and fuse that networking capability, that security capability deep into the network. I think that those service providers who create those integrated services and solutions and offerings are going to very well. So that is one thought around this. And obviously there is the hybrid world. So I think, service providers, a lot of them, they are organized around certain locations, geographies. I think that is as an opportunity for customers for service providers and telcos to position them in an area where the world is going to be hybrid from a sovereignty perspective as well.
So, I'm totally on page with what you're saying, because I've always preached that networks and cybersecurity come hand in hand. And I think you're spot on. And with AI, it becomes even more important. I think when you talk about protecting workloads, we were thinking about SASE, traditional business workloads, but now we're thinking about AI workloads. That takes a whole nother level of cybersecurity, correct? So that integration between networks and cybersecurity, especially for AI and business workloads, is a really massive opportunity for providers. However, many providers I talk to around the world don't have that expertise completely. How can they move toward that vision when there's such a shortage of cybersecurity expertise? Is that something Cisco augments, supplements? Do you see some way of coexisting in any way?
Yeah, so if you look at Cisco's moves in this area, right? So there is, we have on the Cisco Secure Access, which is Cisco Secure Services Edge. We have implemented, for example, MCP proxies with the ability to do inspect AI traffic for all kind of nefarious acts like prompt injection and other things which may compromise that that AI application, or may compromise the total system of an enterprise. So for example, that is kind of functionality enabled on Cisco Secure Access. Now there's an interesting play together with the network, because you can actually redirect from your SD-WAN network. You can say, oh, I have this AI application. It's not 100% trusted. Let me send it to that MCP proxy living on Cisco Secure Access to make sure that it's not compromised before I let it on the network, or you can completely block it. So it's the platform play where you bring those very advanced security functions in existing platforms and enable them on the network or in a cloud security service or on your firewalls, right? So that platform play allows a service providers as well to absorb it, because you don't need to, it's part of a total system, it's part of a total platform without huge changes in the management paradigm in order to enable all that functionality.
And that's really brilliant. And I think more importantly, we've always been talking about, can the overlay of SD-WAN coordinate with the underlay? You've always had this thought that they should come together, and it's much more synergistic to have that than to just have an overlay and don't care about the underlay. Any thoughts on that for our listeners?
Yeah, so I'm a big believer of overlay underlay integration. And I think there is a new opportunity with segment routing. So the industry has been for years working on new underlay technologies which are more programmable at a larger scale, and where you can converge different core networks on a single network fabric, programmable fabric. And that's the simple version. It's based on segment routing these days. And now SD-WAN as an overlay technology basically can be binded to that underlay with segment routing. And that creates cool opportunities. Now, if you have segment routing, you can basically create those differentiated services. You can have best effort, you can have uptime guaranteed, application delivery, latency guaranteed as an example. So you can create those three services. And now with SD-WAN, you can basically, when you can bind the SD-WAN overlay to take advantage of these different service classes, right? So you can bring back deterministic controls in your underlay of your latency. You can bring back to SD-WAN, because SD-WAN, remember, in the old days, it was invented in order to enable cost savings compared to MPLS, so that you can have a mixed network of MPLS and internet and drive cost savings from that. But the negative is that you didn't have a deterministic channel anymore. The beauty of MPLS obviously was it was a deterministic channel. It was not. It was expensive, but you got a great performance out of it. Now with SD-WAN overlaid and bind it to the underlay, you can actually bring it back again a deterministic class. And in the world of AI, where latency, right, and geo-routing becomes important again, I think there is a big benefit of having SD-WAN run on that segment routing infrastructure. Now, this is not something new. If you go to the telcos, a lot of people who work on these core infrastructures, they are aware of those opportunities of SD-WAN overlay on top of an underlay. But obviously the business case has to present themselves. And I think with AI, where you have these high capacity streams, which need to be controlled from a latency point of view, but as well from a privacy point of view, I think there is an opportunity. There is the business case to create those differentiated services. And so now, if you go to, for example, mission critical networks, like networks within a country, right? We start already seeing that countries are building up, their own infrastructure based on segment routing, where they have their different internal customers like cities, fire, other constituents like infrastructure, traffic, etc. They can have their own SD-WAN network running on that underlay provided by that country, right? So you can see these models are slowly being rolled out where people realize the benefits. For example, for mission critical networks to have SD-WAN overlays running on an underlay infrastructure with, for example, segment routing. Yes, so that I can see a lot of benefits coming in there.
So, we're coming to the end of this episode, and I really appreciate all your insight, Hugo. What do you think will differentiate the winning telcos over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think a few thoughts there is that obviously they have to figure out how to make their operations AI native. That has to happen. So to make it very agile, highly automated, of course you need the humans in the loop. But I think working on that infrastructure, which is more AI driven than it was ever before, is hugely important. As well, it's not just automation, but as well in combination with simulation. I think the digital twin is going to come in order to simulate a network. I think service providers who are adopting this approach will do very well in order to deliver better services, but as well control cost. The other thing is, I think, security and network convergence. I think it's really the opportunities there, the time is there. Service providers can really help customers with reducing complexity. And obviously customers want agility. That was one of the weakest points of most service providers, how to make sure that you have a managed service which is agile, right? So if you, but the point is, integration, network, and security is hugely differentiating. Alongside that as well, PQC, post-quantum encryption, is becoming very important to be prepared for Q-Day. We already have several service providers who are already made announcements around PQC-enabled services for the WAN. So I think on all these elements like AI native operations, security network conversions, PQC, and then the other one going back to differentiated services where we talk about overlay, underlay, that you have you're back in terms of that high performance matters, right? And it doesn't mean you won't have best effort or good enough networks. No, you have all of that. And depending on the application, you can provide all of these different service levels for customers.
Well, Hugo, what a fascinating episode. Thank you for all your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to Executives at the Edge, brought to you by Amplify. Be sure to follow, share, and leave a review. Catch every episode on your favorite platform or visit us at amplify.net.